everyone, Leilani Joy here, and welcome back to the Paint Along, the show you can paint along with me in real time while I answer your art and not so art related questions. I am super excited to be back. I'm so excited that my hair turned white, actually. Anyways, I just got back from my appearance at Wonderground Gallery, where I have a month-long featured spot for the entire month of September. So if you're in the Disneyland area, please stop by and pick up one of my ladies and take them home with you. I will also be back the weekend of September 23rd and 24th for another signing and meet and greet to see some of you guys. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you to everyone who came out and saw me in the blistering, ridiculous heat the first weekend I was there. It just so happened that the weekend I was at Disneyland signing was like this epic heat wave. It was like over 100 degrees. It was actually the hottest recorded temperature in the San Francisco Bay Area that they have on record, which was crazy. So it was a very tiring, hot weekend, and I had spent the previous 3 weeks preparing for this appearance, and in which I printed, mounted, bagged, shipped, boarded, prepared over 1,500 prints. And if you don't know what 1,500 prints looks like, it looks something like this. And these were the minis that were actually packed in this box. I think there was even more than that. Anyway, so I have been super busy, and I needed just a couple of days to just chillax and play video games and sit by the air conditioner. Anyways, what do you guys think of my new do? I took the plunge and went for a platinum silver blonde, and I have to say I'm living for it. I really am. Like, I was kind of scared about it because, as some of you guys know, my hair has been through a lot of drama this last year. I was trying to achieve something similar to this about a year ago, and I ended up with some funky orange, blue, green colors, and then I just dyed purple over it, and I waited for that to grow out. And I was in that stage where I'm like, okay, I'm either going to go back to black or I'm going to try to go platinum one more time. So I actually did this myself with the help of my lovely assistant and husband, Brian, who is now my official stylist and colorist because he did such a phenomenal job and my hair is not even really damaged. And for those of you who love a good turnaround makeover set to Sailor Moon music, here is my transformation from my before hair to this hair. Go! Okay, so go get your art supplies, your homework, a needlepoint, which I have available at geckorouge.com, or whatever you'd like to work on today, and let's jump into this new painting. Okay, I am ready to get messy and get my hands in some paint. I've got my brand new painting apron that I'm very excited to be rocking today. And I'm starting my very own pin collection, which I see all these cute pins all the time and I'm like, I wanna have my little collection of my own. So each of these has like a little special place in my heart. I've got my Unico pin, I've got my little palette here, my Snowlet pin, and my husband Brian got me this Mickey and Minnie wedding pin for our very first anniversary that we just celebrated at Disneyland. We had the bride, oh, let me show you this. Oh. I got the little bride mini ears. Yeah, I know, I'm so cheesy. Anyways, let's get to making some money by making a painting. Okay, so today I am working on a fully realized acrylic piece of my Titania that I did a watercolor drawing piece, and I really loved how that turned out. And I love this sketch so much that I decided that I also want to do a fully realized painting with a different palette, actually. A current obsession and longtime inspiration of mine is the artist Ivan Earl, who you've probably seen some of his work. These little thumbnails certainly don't do them justice. But I love his graphic approach to landscapes. I love his palettes and silhouettes of trees. And I just fell in love with these, and I wanted to do something kind of inspired by that with my Titania. So I have this painting started, and it's in a little bit of a weird stage right now, so you know, mind the ugly stage. But I have some paint mixed that I'm going to be using today. I spent quite a bit of time working on color matching my color comp here and selecting some colors to create a nice palette that I liked. And actually it looks like my dark greens aren't picking up on the camera as nice as they are. They look a little darker than they are. So I know I get this question a lot, but I'm just going to explain it for those of you who don't know. This is called a color comp or a color composite, and it's something I do before I paint. So I take my sketch, which I had a line drawing like this over here, and I scan that into Photoshop and quickly painted in some colors just to give me an idea of where I'm going to be going with paint. One thing to keep in mind if you do print this is typically when you print out a color comp, it's not as true to your monitor colors. So this is a little darker and a little more blue-green than my image on my screen. So you'll see my painting here is actually a bit more yellow-green and lime, which is a little more in line with these Ivan Earl palettes that I'm kind of drawing upon. So just something to keep in mind. I like to do this. I think it's a good step because I like to have a plan when I paint, because I think especially when you work kind of more simple and graphic like I do, if my values and my palette aren't harmonious and don't work together well, it can really get muddy and impact will be lost in the final piece. So I always recommend to my students specifically to do a value study and then do a color study and make sure you're happy with that palette, because the palette says a lot about the mood of a piece. So I'm gonna start jumping into my questions here while I start blocking in the trees. And I'm not sure if we're going to get to this today, but I am going to do a more lengthy tutorial video for my Patreon subscribers. You can subscribe there for in-depth tutorials. And I'm going to talk about how I'm going to approach the transparency areas in the wings, because this is a little bit of a tricky area, and there's some tips and tricks I have for you guys on Patreon, and I'll offer it to my students as well, about how to create an illusion of transparency. So that's something I want to achieve, and I want to play with a few different areas of transparency in this piece, which is going to be challenging but fun, I think. So yeah, so I've got some of my colors pre-mixed here. I'm using a little plastic bento box as a palette today, because when I mix specific colors, it's very important that you save enough that you can work back into it. Because acrylics dry very fast, and if you mix the perfect color and it dries out on your palette, then you're donezo, and nobody wants to be donezo, okay? So make sure you do that. If you're working with oils, you have a longer working time with mixed paints and things like that, so you don't have to really worry about that as much. So another thing I was gonna mention today, I might fix this later, but I don't know if it's that her neck got too thin. Something got weird in her face when I did my transfer, and I'm like, what's up with her head? So I might have to go back and tweak that a little bit, because it's so weird when sometimes you have a great drawing and then you do a transfer and you're like, what happened? Because something got weird, but I think it's actually the shape of her cheek and head here, and her neck got a little bit thin. She's got a huge head. It's like an orange on a toothpick. Does anybody get that joke? Anyways, yeah, so I get sort of fussy about fixing things sometimes, and right now I want to just focus in on really laying in my flat colors, and then I'll go back in and tweak and fix later. So don't get too hung up. Some people I notice like to really like complete a complete area of the painting before they move on to the next. I notice some artists that I like actually will completely render out and finish the face before they do anything else. And the reason I don't do that is because that's my favorite part to paint, so I kind of like to just leave the my favorite part till the very end, if you will, like a little reward. It's kind of like, I'm a big fan of artichokes, and it's like when you eat the artichoke, you work your way through all the leaves, so you get the delicious heart at the center. So that's kind of my creation style, but I do like to have a little bit of the face there. Okay, Sarah, let's get started with these questions. And I have a lot of really great ones today, so thank you guys so much for always coming up with new and creative questions for me, because I don't know how you do it. We've done quite a few of these paint-alongs, and somehow you guys still come up with something fun and interesting to ask me. I'm also going to open this up to like topics that you guys just want to discuss. It might not be like a specific question, but if you want to kind of like start a dialogue about something, we can do that too. So you can always post your questions to me in the comments below with hashtag AskLJ, or you can post them on my Instagram or something like that. All right. So my first question today comes from the fabulous, talented, and lovely Creatures from Starlight. And today she has a question for me. And it is, if you were a Monster High doll, what kind of monster would you be? And what would your fashion be? Oh, that's a good one. You guys have seen my sort of custom Monster High doll that I have. This is gonna sound weird because I actually have like a terrible fear of clowns, but like I feel like it would be kind of cool that I haven't seen them do this yet, is to be like a clown realness Monster High doll, like a creepy clown, but yet she still likes rainbows and like bright colors. So that would probably be like where I'd go with it. Like I have a really, like my Leilani May drag wig, like a big puffy like white wig, or maybe rainbow wig, maybe rainbow hair, maybe like a big rainbow afro, like a clown. And then I would have like kind of creepy cute. I'd be like a creepy cute kind of Monster High doll. Okay, who wants to draw this? Somebody do this. Let's make my Leilani Monster High creepy cute clown girl. It would also have like a little bit of like you know, gothic Lolita, like Japanese Harajuku fashion. I think it would definitely be in there. I'm obsessed with, I almost cried when I went to Harajuku in Japan. I literally almost cried. It was just like my mecca, and I wanted to go everywhere. And I was like, don't get any fatter ever, because Japan only sells one size of dress, and currently I can fit into them, which is very exciting. Anyways, so that kind of went off the rails. But yeah, if you guys remember like those Fruits books, I have all of those. It was like Japanese street fashion. That would definitely be my Monster High look. I think that I might have to draw this or something. It sounds really fun. Okay, great question. That was a fun one. Okay, and by the way, I have not seen the new It. I'm really scared to go. My husband Brian is trying to make me go. I don't know if I want to. The original one is definitely the film that like most traumatized me as a child. I couldn't sleep for weeks after seeing it, so I feel like, I don't know if this one would have the same impact just because I'm not 10 years old anymore, but I still really, I heard it was pretty good. Has anybody seen it yet? I do love Halloween movies, but like, I also don't usually like to go to the theater to see them because I feel like I'm not like safe there. Like if I'm at home, I can just cover my eyes or turn it off and put a blanket over my head or something. But when I'm at the theater, like I have to like act like, you know, non-chicken. Non-chicken. Is that like tofurkey? Yeah, anyway. And speaking of that, okay, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm just thinking of funny things to tell you guys about. My husband and a friend of ours, we were at California Adventure at Disneyland the other weekend, and they have the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride, and I'd been on the Tower of Terror before, which I liked. I mean, I was, intense, but I liked it. And so they're like, oh, it's just the same as that. I'm like, okay. So I went on that ride, and I almost died of fear. It was so scary. I was like pounding my arms on the handles, and my legs were like flailing in the air. And I didn't even really open my eyes because I was so scared. So it goes up just as fast. If you guys don't know about this ride, it's sort of like an elevator drop ride. And it now like goes up just as fast as it comes down almost. So it's like pulling you up and then dropping you down and slamming you over and over again. And I grabbed my husband and I was just like, is it almost over? Please God, tell me it's over. Like I can't take it anymore. It was really, afterwards I was like, I don't know. I had been like rattled. We went to dinner afterwards and I'm like, I'm nauseous. Oh, so yeah, I don't know if I'm getting too old for these things, but that was just a little bit too intense for my liking. Okay, so let's move on to another question, because that was like 3 things that were not a question. I got too much water in my paint. I hate that. Can you guys see that? I got my brush a little bit too wet, and now it's just like separating, so I might just wipe some of the moisture out of there. I do hate when I do that, because it just causes problems. Look at that. Come on. How many paintings have I done? I still never freaking learn how to do it. I swear to God. So you guys are not alone if you still make beginning mistakes like I do. I also notice sometimes, like, this reacts differently on canvas. You can get canvas like a little bit more wet because it's absorbent, but these smooth panels have no absorption. So if you have too much water on your brush, it just like sits on there. It's not going to go in, like the opposite of watercolor paper or something like that. So, okay, my next question comes from Joan of Arc 001. Hello, Joan of Arc. Welcome back. Hey, Leilani, I was wondering if you have any troubles when it comes to mixing paints to get the color you need. Yeah, I mix them with too much water, clearly, which I just demonstrated. This is just a demonstration for Joan to show her how I sometimes don't mix paint right. I mean, I don't know if I have troubles. I spend a lot of time in this area sometimes because I really want a specific color. Like I said, I want to match my color composite, and so I'll spend a lot of time making sure that I like the palette, that all the paint colors are harmonious. So I don't know if I have trouble with it. I actually kind of enjoy that part of it. It's like a chemistry challenge, and it's an interesting part of the process because it's kind of like something I could kind of just zone out and do. Sometimes when you're, making more like careful, specific decisions in a painting, it's a lot more mentally draining, if you will. So sometimes I like kind of the little monotonous tasks like mixing paint colors and doing some of the prep work. So I actually kind of enjoy it. I've gotten pretty good. I sort of pride myself on my paint mixing skills. Like I've gotten to it so where within a few passes I can get the color that I want. So I do I don't find I have too much trouble with it. That's something they like really grind into you in art school, so you spend a lot of time doing that. There's like, if you take a color theory class, that's like pretty much all they do is train you to color match. So once you kind of like get it, it becomes kind of second nature. Okay, my next question comes from Odd Knits Adventure. How do you decide on your color palette? Cool. I feel like all your questions are like really in line to like in a nice order of what we're talking about today. So I choose color palettes different ways, but a lot of times I like to I like to steal color palettes from inspiring artwork that already has a mood I like. So just like you would do reference research for a pose or anatomy and whatnot, I also do color palette research. So a lot of times I will look at art and photographs, landscapes, fashion. Those little like swatches for like events or weddings are really nice. Like if you want an autumn wedding and they give you all these swatches of what it looks like. So I do quite a bit of color research actually. And so in this particular case, I was really on an Ivan Earl kick, and these really had that kind of like summer dusk feeling to them, which is what I wanted since this is inspired by A Midsummer Night's Dream. And so I chose a few of these to kind of work from. I'm probably most closely working from this one here in the middle, and I'm probably going to have a little bit of teal, so it's probably in the realm of these two up here. So it is totally fine to borrow or steal color palettes. There's no copyright on color, so feel free. I really recommend this because it's really helpful to create the mood that you're going for, because you feel a certain mood from the inspiration art and you're like, I want to transfer that mood into my piece. That is a really great way to do that. So I highly recommend doing color research. I insist that my students do it in my class, and we have several exercises where we actually explore color moods and try changing color moods, things like that. So it's really kind of a fun exercise. Now I have a question from Victor Stoned. Your paintings always seem to come from a happy place. Do you ever paint out your bad feelings? Oh, that's a great question. I've actually haven't had that question before, surprisingly. I never really thought about it like that. I guess you can kind of tell like where you are in life in a way, probably by your artwork, right? I am in a pretty happy place with my art and my life. I'm very lucky to get to do what I do as a job. I have a wonderful partner. My family's in good health. Like things are pretty good for the most part. I occasionally have financial worries. But I kind of feel mostly inspired by bright colors, strong characters. I definitely like my females to have a story behind them and exude strength. But it's interesting because I look back on some of like my high school artwork where I was more in turmoil and things. I like to make comics about my struggles, and I did more dark vampire kind of stuff. I was into that back then, Buffy and such. But I don't really have, like, to be honest, I don't really have like a deep darkness within. I definitely have a pessimistic side at times, and like to sometimes laugh at things I shouldn't. I like dark themes too, though. I mean, you guys know I occasionally like to do you know, darker art, vampires, Medusa, things like that. There's a piece that I really want to do. I'm hoping to do it soon. I guess I'll hint it because you guys, you know, you're my avid watchers. But I saw a film like a few months ago called Under the Skin, and it really gets under the skin, quite literally. It stuck with me, and it had some very powerful images and themes in it, and it's not a happy story, and it's kind of a dark, sad, disturbing tale. Sorry, I'm getting a text message. And I really am drawn to it, though, even though it's not like a typical subject matter that I would want to, that I paint. I'm thinking about doing something inspired by it because it was such a, it resonated with me in a way. So if you guys have seen it, yeah, it had this really eerie soundtrack. I don't know, it had a very specific mood to it that I would like to recreate. And there's this kind of themes of like these endless like abyss, like black water or ink or something. So I love that in my work. So that's something that I'd like to explore. So thanks for that. Good idea. I mean, I have, of course, I have dark times, and maybe it would be interesting to do more pieces that are a little different side of myself, because I definitely have those dark, hopeless days sometimes too. So yeah, that's a good one. My next question comes from Eliza Rose Illustration. What do you find to be the best method to gather inspiration when you have artist block? I honestly, like I have said this before, I don't have artist block very often. I usually have the opposite problem where I have too many projects I have to do and I don't want to do them. So that's slightly different, I guess. But something I use Pinterest a lot. I keep a lot of inspiration on Pinterest. I also like to kind of give myself like an assignment, or you can do this for yourself and just be like, okay, if I was gonna design an album cover, what would I do? Or if I was gonna illustrate this song, what would I do? Or choose a character from a book and reinvent them in a new way, or design a costume for them. So I often like to kind of come up with a art challenge for myself, if you will, or how would I interpret this? So, I mean, this is kind of a great example because it's a character from a play, but it's fantastical. And even though there's been film adaptations, I was like, well, how would I envision this character and how would I design them? So that kind of gives you a jumping off point. I think people, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people get caught up in, what should I draw? What should I paint? And then that gives them block because they just don't even know which direction to go in. So I think kind of setting yourself, make a little book where when you have an idea, write it in, even if you don't have time to do it, because you can always revisit it later when you're feeling stumped. I love music. I love nature. I love just go out in your city or town with your camera and take pictures. Sometimes an advertisement or something will make me think of an idea. So just always be on the lookout for inspiration before you have the block, because that kind of helps when it actually comes and you already have some things like, oh, I never got around to doing that project or whatever. So it's hard, and sometimes you just cannot force it, and be forgiving of yourself during those times and find a different creative outlet. Go take a dance class, go, you know, go hiking, go into nature, take yoga, sew something, make something, sculpt something, try a different medium. Sometimes you just gotta refresh those creative muscles, if you will. And I certainly understand burnout, and I've felt it many times. I've been feeling it a little bit recently, and then I almost feel like anxiety about going back to painting because I'm like, like I don't want to mess it up and things like that. So just be kind. We all have that problem, so at least know that you're not alone in it. And if you find that you're struggling a lot or all the time, you may, and this is, I have said this before, is you may be using a medium that's not right for you, or you may be really needing to learn some more technical skills because you keep running into a block you can't get past because you just don't have the knowledge and you don't have the training yet. So take a class. Classes can really help kind of like get you over that hump. So take my class. I'd be happy to have you and help you with that. And actually I offer my students, sorry, students only, but I offer my students an inspiration sheet with prompts to kind of help them. And we're always adding to it and kind of giving them some new ideas to go off of. So that might help you too. Okay, next I have one from Lavinia the Dream Teller. Hello, Leilani. I love your art and your YouTube channel. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I think I have found my style and I'm doing my best to find an audience and in general, people that might like my work. It is hard sometimes in a world with so many visual distractions and with so many good artists out there. Sometimes it can get very depressing, especially when I think I'm already 25 and still not established in the art scene. I regret not starting sooner. Oh my God, this sounds so familiar. I just want to say that. So familiar. Did I write my own question here? I regret not starting sooner. I regret not taking art school. So finally, my question, did you ever feel like this? Yes. And when you started your art business, did you ever feel like you were too old in a world where younger artists are already ahead? Oh, Lavinia, I would really like to hug you because I relate so strongly to this. This question is actually hitting really close to home for me right now. Everything you said is absolutely normal to feel that way, and I still feel that way often actually. And I've been going through a little bit of a shift myself recently because social media is changing, and you guys probably have noticed this as well. And many of my social platforms have plateaued, if you will. Like I'm just really not building any more audience, and kind of things are just, I get sort of the same amount of likes, and like I'm very lucky and blessed to have an incredible fan base. You guys who've been with me for a very long time and stuck with me and been with me since the beginning. But I am noticing that it is getting more competitive. It is getting harder for some of you guys who are just starting out. When I just started YouTube, there were not a lot of art channels, honestly, and speed paint videos were kind of a new thing, and I got a lot of attention very quickly on art that wasn't very good, to be honest with you, I don't think. And now it's like all the really strong, good artists have YouTube channels, and they're great. And I mean, I can't knock them for that, but it's making us harder, especially for the little guys that are just kind of trying to find their way in social media and their art career. So I definitely understand how it can be a little more discouraging now. With that said, though, I don't want you to give up. Please don't give up. Things are always changing. There's always new ways to market yourself, and we just have to learn to adapt, myself included. And that's something that I am trying to learn right now. And many of you guys know I was working on my Business of Art class, and some of the notes and like curriculum that I had already written has already changed, and so it's kind of overwhelming me a little bit. Like, how do I keep up? How do I stay current? How do I help you guys when things have already changed from when I started out? Some things were easier, some things are better now. So I really need to re-educate myself a little bit to help you guys with this, because I definitely feel your pain and I understand. And I see people, sometimes very young people, and try not to judge by age, like you say, but I know what you mean. Is I'll see an artist who's, you know, not even 20 years old, and they have 100,000 followers on their art, and I'm like, I've been working at this for so many years and I can't really get over like a certain number. But again, success is not measured by likes. Remember that, because I have seen you know, some people, not to name any names, but they get hundreds and hundreds of likes, and then I go over to their store or whatever and notice they haven't actually had very many sales. So there is a difference between getting instant gratification likes from people like, oh, I like that, and actually getting committed fan base that will be long-term collectors, that will support you long-term, because those people are much more valuable. And that's you guys that watch my channel, that you know, you guys that watch my channel, that subscribe to my Patreon, that come and see me at events. Like, you're the most important to me. I don't really care about frivolous likes that never even come back. I'd rather really build my brand and try to keep improving and coming up with more things to continue to engage my loyal fans. So yeah, I'm going to keep you posted on the technical aspects of this, and I'm still researching this for myself as well. But my just short suggestion is to please keep doing it. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Keep putting it out there. You know, keep trying to improve your art. If you feel, like I said earlier, if you're feeling struggling with your technique and you're like, I'm plateauing, I'm peaking through my self-taught ways, I would absolutely love to have you in my class. I think maybe I could help you narrow down your audience and maybe help you with that a little bit, since you're feeling more confident in your style, which is great. But there might be some other things that you can do technically that would help you get some more eyes on your stuff. And like I've said, there's nothing wrong with, you know, trying to get in on some trending topics. It's never a bad idea. Some of those like draw challenges are a great idea to get some more looks at your work. I think Mabgrave's like Drawloween is coming up, and that's a really fun exercise to do. Inktober is a good one to get in on, because a lot of people are looking at those hashtags during those times. So maybe check out some of those drawing challenges and trends, so that you can get some more people to see it. And remember always to hashtag your work, and try to come up with some hashtags. I am going to include this in my class I'm going to teach, because I think this is a good one actually, is try to stay away from like mega huge ones like hashtag art or hashtag painting, because there's literally millions of posts under those hashtags, so you're going to just get washed down the feed really quick. So what I suggest to people who are trying to kind of get some eyes on their stuff early on is to choose smaller hashtags that maybe only have like a few thousand. Let's say keep it under 50,000 or something like that. So find some hashtags that are a little more niche and a little more specific. I think that really helps you find fans that really are looking for those specific things. So if you're working in a specific art style, or it's a more specific subject matter, so get a little bit more creative with your hashtags. I think that's something that might help. Anyways, please hang in there. I'm with you. We're in this together. I will help you guys as much as I can if I learn something new, and just don't get discouraged, because I love you and I support you and I relate so strongly. And don't worry about the age thing. There was a really great post I saw somewhere, and it was like all these people who didn't have any success before 40, and there were some people that would really surprise you on there. Actors, designers, famous people who never got a break until, you know, midlife, even later. So don't worry about the number. That used to be something that bothered me a lot, because I was already a little bit older when I went to college, because I went to junior college first because I was nervous to go away from home. So I was already like older than a lot of the kids in art school, and then I was like, some of them are better than me, and some of them went to art high schools and had an edge on me there. So I was very hung up on that. And honestly, you are only 25, girl. Like, you got a lot of time. I am 32, and I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I'm establishing certain things. And just when I think, I'm like, okay, I'm successful, I can relax now, I'll have some monkey wrench thrown in there, and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm back at square one. So this is just kind of part of the whole experience. And we just have to keep coming up with new ways to reinvent ourselves and adapt and come up with multiple revenue streams and different ways to continue making art for a living. So we will continue the fight. Okay, next I have a question from the lovely Monica S. from Instagram. And today she says, do you have a goal in your art? Like, I want to be in a gallery, or I want to have my art in a book. What is your next step? I love your art. Thank you so much, Monica. That is a great question. And again, you guys, your questions are all like in sync. They really kind of like tie into one another, which is really great for this paint along. So I have unlocked some of these achievements. I have my art in galleries. I have had my art in some publications. But that's a really great question, and I think about this a lot, and I'm like, okay, I have some like ambitious ideas cooking around in there, but how do I get to them? I truly would love to go back to writing stories and illustrating them, whether in graphic novel form or illustration or some sort of a hybrid between the two. Because that was something that initially really drew me to illustration, was so I could have images that went with my original stories and ideas. And it was something I felt very passionate about. And I mean, it sounds nerdy, but there were times when I was in school where I would come home and just write stories, and I couldn't wait to get back to writing, and I miss that a lot. I don't know if I still have any ideas in there, but that's something I would like to revisit. Maybe children's books, but maybe not necessarily. Almost, I like this new kind of hybrid, which is like children's books for adults or children's books for older children. It's such a hard road. I know I have several friends who have actually gone this way, and it is just an all-consuming project. And so something that I'm kind of struggling with is I've kind of found my stride in how I earn a living. So, you know, I paint, I make videos, I teach, I sell prints, I do events, and that takes up like most of my time. So altering that would be challenging to go in another direction. But it remains to be seen. Who knows? Maybe I'll win the lottery, and then I can take some time to actually focus on writing books and stories and illustrating them. I wouldn't want to stop painting because I also really love that part of my job. So I don't know. That remains to be seen. I'm also, I mean, I don't know how I would ever adapt this. I'm very passionate about films, and like if there was some way that I could be involved in that kind of a process. I'm not really a concept artist, but I don't know, I love them, and I used to make sort of my own little movies as a kid. So yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of different things that art and design can go into, but we'll just have to see. And I really want to continue teaching as well. I really have felt passionate about that over the last few years. I want to come up with another class. I want to come up with some mini classes. Like, would you guys be into that if I just had a very short lesson on like a specific thing that you could do along with me? Probably wouldn't include like critique and stuff like my big class does, just because I don't have time to critique that many students. But I would love to have some kind of like mini tutorials that you can participate in. And yeah, I think that would be a fun addition to Art Nouveau U. Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll see what's next for me. I really would love to maybe do an art book as well, a coloring book. A lot of people have suggested. I think I might have a coloring book going at some point, because as you guys know, I'm doing a coloring contest on my Patreon, where it's just at patreon.com/LeilaniJoy. You can join in and color along with us, and I give away prizes each month. So probably after a certain amount of time, I'll have enough line art from that to actually put it into a book. So that could be cool too. Okay, so thank you so much for your question, Monica. That's a great one. Okay, next we are on Liam RG, who asks, how do you get your drawings to look so symmetrical? I always struggle with it, especially the eyes. Do you know any tips or tricks that help? I do, and that is something, yeah, especially like in a piece like this, that is very important when you have like a straight on image. I definitely have a few cheats that I use. One of them is I call the tracing paper trick. And I don't have, I sometimes have some tracing paper around here, but I don't right now. But what you can do with a piece of tracing paper is if you want your eyes to be symmetrical, you can take a piece of paper and a piece of tracing paper, and you can trace one eye onto the tracing paper, and then you can flip over the tracing paper like so and rub that onto the other side, and so then you have an identical eye. Sometimes I do that with halves of the head just to get the head to be symmetrical. That works really well. And other times I will just kind of draw freehand, and I'm like, just something is weird, and I will do it in Photoshop, and I'll flip an eye or something or tweak it around because, you know, it's a tool. It's not cheating, it's a tool. So occasionally I will do that, especially if I end up liking one eye a lot better. I'm like, I really wish the other eye matched. So I'll flip that in Photoshop, and then I will either print it and redraw, or I kind of do several stages. Sometimes I'll scan, shift things in Photoshop, print, redraw, scan again. So sometimes my drawings go through a few stages. I'm not really a drawing purist like some people are, will just do drawing and it's perfect and they go for it. I tweak my drawing around quite a bit. Sometimes I want to change the proportions a little bit, and honestly it just gives me a result at the end that I'm more happy with, so I don't really feel guilty in any way. Okay, next I have, let's see, next I have a question from Paint Stained Nando. Hey Paint Stained Nando, what's up? If you could create a drag inspired look as any of the girls you've painted, who would it be? And I actually punctuated that with the mouth pop because he has that written here, so I wanted to make sure that I actually read the question correctly. Okay, if you could create a drag-inspired look as any of the girls you've painted. Oh, wow. That is a really good question. Oh my god, what do you guys think? That man, I would really love to do one of my Barbie looks. Would be really, really fun. There's a lot of room for that. Like this one back here. Oh no, my little animals fell down. That Monster High piece I just did, that could be super, super fun. A really big wig and teal skin. I would love to do something a little bit like cosplay drag. I really am into that. So I might pick that one. I'd also love to just do like one of my rainbow haired girls, like my Lady Amalthea, just like a big, beautiful pastel rainbow wig. Oh, I don't know. That's a really good one. I don't know. What would you guys pick? Which of my paintings would you most want to cosplay? And anybody that does it for Halloween will get free something from me. That would be really, really cool, I think. Okay, well, now we can see my silhouettes of my trees are starting to come into view here. And it's really starting to kind of show the actual shapes, which is always an exciting part of the process. So let's refer back to our color comp here and see where we're going. So on the inside of here, I'm going to have a lighter green that I've mixed up as well, because it's going to look a little bit like there's another layer underneath that's like catching some of this glow that's sort of coming from this area. So yeah, so I'm going to go in and start doing that too and see how that looks. All right, it's time to start working on this face to serve some face up in here, because her lifeless dead eyes are starting to freak me out. So I want to darken those pupils a little bit. She's got this like kind of look about her right now, and I want to soften that a little bit as we proceed. Anyways, as we begin that, my next question comes from McArt Pop. Waffles or pancakes? Waffles, especially with fried chicken. My next question comes from Haley Jensen Art. Hi, Leilani, and hi, fellow paint-along watchers. Hello! We're all in this together. I was wondering if you color check your own prints. I go crazy trying to match my painting colors exactly on my prints, and I end up wasting so much paper. Are there any tips you've learned about improving this process, or should I stop trying to be a perfectionist? Also, do you have any tips on vending your art in persons, like art fairs and such? Thanks, Leilani. That's a great question. I feel like I haven't talked about that really before either. And yes, I am also a stickler for accurate colors. And when I do my home printing, it's nice because I do have a lot of control. But when I order online, like from outside printers, especially if I have to do a large bulk order or something, it can be quite infuriating to try to get color matching on printers that you're not familiar with. So there's a couple of things that you can do, and I definitely go through this because I do also like to try to get my prints as close to my actual painting as possible. But do remember that, you know, paint and ink are different, and you're not usually going to get exactly what you have on your painting. A couple of things you can do though, which I recommend, and I won't be able to explain step by step because it depends on what kind of printer you have, your monitor, all that stuff. But look up monitor printer calibration.
I'm in the middle of some calibrations, in the middle of some calibrations.
I had to just enter a little Mass Effect humor from my husband Garrus that is with me at all times. Yeah, so look up monitor printer calibration, and that will help you see more accurate colors on your computer monitor and try to match those with your printer. So number one, that's very helpful. And number two, I would recommend doing some... So you can do a few different color samples of your prints and go a little bit off of what you think you want a lot of times. So if you have something like this and you're like, well, this is very lime green, I'm afraid to go too blue, or I'm afraid to go too yellow, do one that's a little too yellow and one that's a little too blue, and then one that you think is just right. And then print them small. So get like some photo paper that you're going to be using and make just like little thumbnails. Print them in little thumbnail size. So it's still going to be the same colors. You're just not going to have to waste as much paper by printing a full page print every time. So when you print it out and you go, oh my gosh, I thought that one was going to be too blue, but it's actually just right. So that happens to me a lot. And just through practice, I've gotten pretty good at getting it pretty close on the first try. Occasionally greens are tricky. I do find that sometimes my greens aren't quite right, or they're desaturated, or they're a little bit too blue or a little bit too yellow. But I've gotten so that I can kind of tell which way I need to tweak. So do try that as well. And make sure you have a really good scan or a really good photograph of your painting, because sometimes it actually could be a little bit of image loss if you're using not so good tools to reproduce your painting. I don't know what kind of medium you're using, but I personally find that watercolors are the hardest. I have quite a bit of struggle getting my watercolors to print like they do, because watercolor has a lot of subtlety to it, which is what makes them so beautiful in real life, but sometimes reproducing them is a little bit tricky. So I have run into that a bit. Acrylics I find easier because they're so you know, flat and saturated that the ink is able to mimic that a little bit better. So give a couple of those things a try. If you really are frustrated, you can always go to a local printer and work with them and have them kind of help you. They can usually guide you they're experts on this subject after all, so that might be a way to go too. So I think you had another part of your question, which is, do you have any tips on vending your art in person, like at art fairs and such? Yeah, that's a great question too. I think I do have a little bit about this on my blog right here, maybe, because I feel like I did do a little write-up on this about what to charge and things like that. So I won't go too in depth on that because I think I did write about it. But just a few helpful hints that I've learned over the years is have several price points. That's something that really, really helps. Because if you go out there with a bunch of original paintings and your price points are all, you know, $100 to $1,000, you're really going to have a little bit of a hard time, because vendor shows are primarily impulse buys. I find that most of the time it's people that kind of like something, they're really willing to drop maybe $20 at the most. Most of the time, the bulk of my transactions at vendor fairs are below $20. So I make sure that I have lots of things available in that price range. Occasionally, I'll get someone to get a bigger print, or on a very rare occasion, I'll get them to buy a canvas reproduction or commission me later. But for the most part, they really like dropping between $5 and $20. $5 is a really great way. So postcards, little buttons, small prints, those are my big money makers at those types of fairs. So really keep that in mind, because you're going to have, you know, especially depending on how big the fair is, there's a lot of competition and people are a little bit tight about what they're going to buy, especially at a, you know, vendor show or craft fair type of thing. So do keep that in mind and see if that helps you. My next question today comes from J of D. Hello, Leilani. I was wondering if there's any medium you'd like to see your art in, like games, movies, etc. Oh, that's a good question too. We kind of talked a little bit about that earlier. Any of those would be awesome, actually. That's always kind of like a level up moment if you get your art to be translated elsewhere. And actually, speaking of that, an artist that I really like and have followed for a long time named Leslie Levings, she does a series of polymer clay sculptures called Beastlies, and I'm lucky enough to own a few of them, and I love them. And we went to the movie theater to see 10 Cloverfield Lane, because I'm a big Mewins fan, of course, and actually that movie was great. And there's a shot when she's in her apartment at the very beginning, and there's one of Leslie Leving's sculptures, Beastlies, just like on the table, like next to her keys or whatever. And I was in the theater and I was like, and I grabbed my husband's arm. I'm like, Beastlies, it's in the movie. And he's like, oh, Beastlies. So I think I sent her a message. She was like, hey, I saw your sculpture in a huge Hollywood film. So that was actually really cool. I would love something like that to happen. My art like in the background somewhere or something would be cool on a show or movie. Games would be super cool. I'm always like, okay, like games would be super cool. I'm such a nerd, and I'm always like, my husband works in film and games, and I'm always like, draw me in there in the background or something. Maybe you got a little character that goes by. And he's like, I can't draw you into everything. So you never know. You might see me mixed in. I'll let you know if it happens. He hasn't done it yet, but you never know. What would be really cool though is if I wrote my own story and or comic or book or something, and they wanted to make a movie of that. Now that's living the dream. That's actually just happened to a friend of mine, which is really, really cool, and I'll have to give you guys some details about that. It was sort of his passion project that actually got discovered at Comic-Con, and he had like some concept art and kind of the gist of the story, and someone was like, we want to make this into a book series and film. And so it's just sometimes the right person sees your stuff, and there you have it. So that would be totally cool and surreal. Okay, my next question comes from No Tone Rydell. Hi, so fast question. If you could, would you get rainbow colored hair? Yes, I would. I would love to have rainbow colored hair, but the only problem is like, it's got to be the most high maintenance thing ever. In fact, I don't even know how you keep it like that once it's done. Like, I get how you could do it the first time, but then once you ever wash your hair, I feel like it's just going to bleed together, and you're going to have, like, when you mix all the Play-Doh colors together. So I don't really know, but maybe a great rainbow wig would be in order. I feel like rainbow hair's been like a hot topic today. Maybe we're still sticking to our theme. Okay, now I just have to say this because I'm a huge dork, and I'm just looking at your tiny little thumbnail. No Tone Rydell. Is that a picture, a cosplay of Chloe from Life is Strange, or am I just imagining that? Or do you just happen to look like her? Okay, I'm looking at your feed. Okay, I can't tell because I don't see your profile picture. But please tell me if it is, because If it is, I love you. If it's not, I love you anyway. But you look just like Chloe from Life is Strange. And I am so excited because the prequel just came out. If you guys are followers of that, I highly recommend the game if you haven't checked it out. It is really, really awesome story, decision-based game. And they came out with a prequel. It is not by the same company that did the first one, even though I know the company is planning on doing a follow-up, like, unrelated, I believe. They're going to do a second season of Life is Strange. I would keep wanting to say Stranger Things. Life is Strange. But I think Square Enix made a little prequel. Unfortunately, I heard it's not the original voice actress that did Chloe, and I'm always kind of a stickler for, like, voices, so hopefully it's not too cringy. But yeah, so if any of you guys have tried that, let me know. Maybe by the time I come back on the paint along, I will have tried the first episode and we can talk about it. Yeah, I love that game. Okay, anyways, Jenny Ford 023. Would you ever do a painting inspired by your favorite drag queen? If so, who would it be? I think I've had this question before. I would definitely maybe do something inspired by, like, one of their looks or something in that realm. I'm a little wary of doing, like, fan art or just, like, tribute art to, like, celebrities and stuff, just because, number one, like, a lot of the queens make a living off their likenesses and, like, t-shirts and artwork created for them, so I wouldn't really want to sell prints of the art unless I had their permission, because I just feel like it's not really cool. I know a lot of people do that, like, on Redbubble and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but that's, like, their whole character, and I don't know, I think it's kind of, I don't really like the idea of taking their character and marketing it. So I probably would do something less specific, like something that has sort of, like, their face or something like that, or just one of their costumes. And speaking of which, this is the perfect time to insert this because I'm still geeking out so hard. But I've considered several times doing one of my favorite original queens is Raven from season 2. And when I watched season 2, I actually was flipping through the channels when this was actually airing on Logo, and I hadn't seen the show before, and I was like, who is that beautiful person? I want to know. And that's what hooked me on Drag Race. And I just love her features. I love the way she paints herself. And I've, for a long time, wanted to do something inspired by Raven's look. So I'm definitely probably going to do this now because something just happened to me recently, which is like that fangirl dream moment that everyone hopes for. Is I connected with Raven's boy self, David, a long time ago on Facebook, probably like when season 2 was airing and she didn't have her friends maxed out. And I occasionally she liked some of my posts and I was like, oh my god. But recently she sent me this photo right here, and she went to Wonderground Gallery and bought my artwork. This is my piece Tootie, and she sent me this picture and I like almost died. I am such a geek. So a hero of mine bought my artwork, and she actually sent me a little note and said how much she loves my work. And yeah, so anyways, don't cry, you weirdo. So anyways, that was really, really surreal. That just happened to me last week. So thank you so much, David Raven. If I ever get to meet you, I will die. And thank you so much for giving my Tootie a good home. So super surreal geek out moment for me as a huge fan of Raven and Drag Race. So anyways, I may have to do a tribute to her now because she's just so fierce, and now she's a fan of mine, which is really, really cool. Okay, gushing down. Kaylee JFL. Is that right? Hopefully that's what you're going for there. Hey, Leilani, I was wondering if you had any life hacks, tips to survive art school. Drop out. No. Just kidding. I'm going to be a freshman and I'm a little nervous. Any advice is appreciated. I love your paint-alongs. Oh, thank you, Kaylee. That's a good one. I'm not sure if I've been asked that specifically yet either. So this is going to be kind of, I'll answer this like a note to my former self, if that's okay with you. Don't worry, don't compare yourself to others if you can possibly avoid it, because the honest truth is, and I can tell you this now because of where I am, it doesn't really matter that much. The people who were the best in class didn't necessarily do anything with their art later on. And, you know, that could be for a variety of circumstances. But I am proud to say I was someone who struggled. I didn't know if I was in the right place. I was very intimidated. I spent a lot of time comparing myself to others. I had a lot of anxiety. I actually started experiencing panic attacks for the first time, which I didn't know what they were. It was very frightening. I had to like kind of deal with some of that stuff. But now I kind of know why I was putting so much pressure on myself. I was like, this is the end all be all determiner, is that a word? I'm the determiner of my entire future. So no pressure. And I had some teachers that kind of, I think, underestimated me a little bit. I don't know. I kind of didn't. I had a few really, really great teachers who were super supportive, and some of them I'm still in contact with. But others that kind of just thought, you know, oh, she's never really going to do anything. And they didn't really encourage me too much. So I felt a little bit lost. And I always had, my experiences in school until that point had been very, you know, I was the kid that when the teacher left, they'd be like, Leilani, can you watch the class? And I'm like, but I got straight A's. I was praised for that. I got a lot of positive feedback from instructors. I always felt like I was doing a good job and I was reassured. And in art school, that completely flipped upside down. So that was very traumatic for me and scary because I felt like I'm trying really hard, but I'm not measuring up because art is just so different than other subjects. I mean, there's only so much you can push yourself, and sometimes you're just not as experienced as other students, and they have an advantage. So just be kind to yourself. Keep these things in mind. It'll really help you. And remember that other people have different experiences. Some people grow up with artist parents that give them extra training. My parents were not artists. You know, they're like, oh, good job, but they didn't really critique me, or I didn't really take any special classes. I just went to regular elementary school, regular high school, where the art program was very limited. So, of course, I didn't have some of the special training that some of the kids came in with. And I wish I would have kind of considered that instead of being like, okay, I'm already, like I said, I was already a little bit older than some of the other students. I was already 21 and I was already 21 when I started art school, and a lot of kids were, 18 or whatnot, and I'm like, they're already better than me. I'm slow. So, that's a good one to keep in mind. Also keep in mind that your teachers are there to help you. Of course they are, but sometimes they are not 100% right. And that thing was also hard for me to deal with because I'd always been someone who was like, oh, if the teacher says that, that must be it. That must be the only thing, and that must be black and white. And I had a teacher that told me flat out, my senior year, thanks a lot, you will never get anywhere doing portraits of girls with no backgrounds. You need to learn how to do backgrounds and do illustrative storytelling and hire models and shoot your own reference. And I was like, what? So that really terrified me. And I was like, but I see these people, my idols. I see Camilla D'Erico. I see Audrey Kawasaki, Sylvia G., who went to my art school, by the way. And I'm like, they're doing it. Why can't I do that? And it just wasn't really something, pop surrealism, female art, that was kind of just becoming trendy. And I was obsessed with it. And I was a little bit frightened when I was told that wasn't a good career choice. But now I take that as a grain of salt because as much as I respect that teacher that gave me that advice, they were wrong. I mean, I am doing it now, and I'm doing it successfully and making a living at it. Okay. Anyways, so I hope that helps. I might come up with some more tips for you guys. And like I said, I'm happy to be brutally honest about these things. And no shade to my art school. I had somebody once say, oh, you're always hating on art school. I'm not hating on it. I actually really value it. I really respect the instructors that I had. I don't think I would be where I am today had I not gone there. I was not a person that was able to self-teach myself, to compete on a professional level. So no, I absolutely value it. I studied under some amazing, incredible artists. Kazu Sano, for example, I had the honor of learning under him just a few years before he passed away, actually. And I'm so grateful for that. He was a true master. Chuck Pyle is a master illustrator. He was my department head, and I had the opportunity to study under him. And yeah, so I really had a valuable experience there. So no, I don't hate on it. I just try to be honest about what it's like, because they tried to sell me a very shiny package, and they showed you a beautiful dorm room with sunny windows and a little art table and a little work studio. And when I got assigned to my actual dorm room, it was in a back alley with bunk beds and a dirty rug and no sunlight, and it was depressing, and I cried in the shower for weeks. I'm not kidding. Yeah, so anyways, go in with an open mind and just be there to learn. But remember, ultimately, when you get done, take everything that you've learned and then break those damn rules and do what you want anyway. So that would be my biggest advice for that. Okay, guys, well, I think I have rambled into overtime today, but I still have quite a few questions that I want to get to answering for you. So I am going to continue this paint along in a part 2 that you can find right over there in my videos, and I will continue answering your questions and painting this lovely fairy piece, which will be done very soon. If you are one of my Patreon subscribers, this will be your September print subscription. So I have subscriptions for my patrons that if they pay a certain amount, they get a print in the mail every month. So I hope you guys are excited to receive this one. And I've decided to also send a bonus print this month. So you will get a limited edition of my watercolor version of Titania as well. So that is a little added bonus if you are a Patreon subscriber, which you can become right here. Anyways, I am excited to keep painting and answering your questions. Please shoot me some new questions for a future episode of the Paint Along right below with hashtag AskLJ. Send me your questions, comments, things for discussion. And thank you for watching. We will be back very shortly with part 2. Bye, guys. Keep creating.